Well. Oh, let's get on the floor. That's better. Oh, hello, everybody. Tis I, Jason Up, New Age Revolution Cave. You know the deal. You know what we say here on the channel. What are we talking about? I'm not centered. Let me get centered. What are we talking about here on the channel today on the big show? We're going to do a hey do you remember? Hey, do you remember? Because the communication between childhood best friend and I is a flowing, and we are reminiscing, and we had a nice thread of conversation today, and I said, see, this needs to be a show. This needs to be a show. So we're currently trying to negotiate a contract, and we're trying to get old Howie on the show. Really, what to expect if we do get him? It'll probably be a Zoom. It'll be a recorded Zoom, and it'll be just two people talking. Honestly, it'll just be story after story. So anyway, we were talking about something from our elementary school days, and it becomes a show idea. And he mentioned the word WEEPAL. And so I ask you, do you remember the WEEPAL? That's not the do you remember. Do you remember the WEEPAL? The hey, do you remember candy and magazine sales in elementary school? Hey, do you remember when you had to go door to door so that your class could win a trip to the planetarium? Do you remember when you had to go door to door with a box of chocolate, and you had to ring the doorbell, and you had to ask your neighbors, and also people on the street that you had no idea who they were. You had to ask that person at 6 o'clock at night, hey, would you like to buy a candy bar? Or if you went to my elementary school, you sold the chocolate bars, but you also sold magazines. That's right. You would go door to door with a sheet of paper that had all kinds of magazines listed on them, and you would beg your neighbors to buy magazines. So, hey, do you remember selling candy for your school or selling magazines? I sure do. And at my school, good old St. Pius in Rochester, New York, we would have, of course, there would be like the grand prize that the class would win. And I'll have to chat with Howie about it because I don't remember what the grand prizes were. I mean, it might have been a skating party. It might have been, I don't know. I don't know what the big prize was. But I think that there was like a new bike or a TV or something like that for the kid that sold the most in the whole school. I think they would announce that. And I remember them doing like a top 3, of who sold, and they would announce them. And, I would end up selling like 32 bars of chocolate, and I figured I had a chance. But, the kid that won, sold 413 or something. But even if you sold barely any like I did, and even if you had to have your mom write a check because you ate 3 or 4 candy bars like I did, you still got a prize. You got the world famous WEEPAL, ladies and gentlemen. And believe it or not, according to Reddit, WEEPALs are still given out as prizes in elementary schools. What's a WEEPAL? Well, you've seen the pictures. What's a WEEPAL? A WEEPAL is just this meaningless, valueless cotton ball that has legs glued to it. And then, of course, the legs are sticky, so you peel off the backing and the legs can stick. And the WEEPAL has 2 googly eyes. And for some reason, like a tail of like a fortune cookie strip of paper. I don't know what those were. Those are WEEPALs. And you'd get them for, participating at the very least in the great candy bar sale. Now, do you remember the candy bars? I do. There was caramel, right? You break open a piece of chocolate and there's caramel in it. I know that there was crispy. There was rice, Rice Krispie chocolate bar, which is my least favorite. And then there was either almond or peanut butter was your choices back then. And I was either an almond or a peanut butter guy. I don't remember the fundraising part, meaning I don't know what our school was going for. I don't know if it was for like a new gym floor or new AV equipment. I don't remember, but we would sell it every year. And the years that we sold it, we lived in an apartment complex. And that's risky in, 1980 something. That's risky because the apartments, you'd have to go. So we lived in a complex that was townhouses and apartments. We had a townhouse that just had a front door, but the apartments, you had to go into like a lobby, and then, so you're inside. And then you go up a couple of stairs and you knock on that guy's door, and then you go down a couple stairs, and you knock on that guy's door. But we were like, poster children for abduction back then. We were screaming to be, on a milk carton, just walking around and going into apartments, trying to sell chocolate as a 9-year-old. We are prime for the taking, folks. But nobody cared. It wasn't like my mom was selling candy with me. Now I think today, what if one of my children, what if the homeschool needed a fundraiser and we bought a bunch of chocolate and sent our child out there to sell chocolate for Nup Elementary School? Would I send him alone? No. He's 11. I'm still not sending him alone. I'll be right next to him. And I'm walking around in the dark going into apartment buildings. The magazines, that was a whole new game. That was a whole new ball game because you gotta go. And what is it? What does a 9-year-old say? Hi, would you like to buy a magazine? There's no sell. There's no introduction. There's no, do you like to read? Do you like to stay up on the latest celebrity gossip, Mr. Smith in 5B? What is that odd smell coming from your apartment? Yes, I'll come in. Of course I will. No, there was no sell. It was just, hi, would you like to buy a magazine? And most people were like, for what? For what? Well, for St. Pius Elementary School. And I don't know if it's like the cute kid factor or what, but we sold magazines. We had some subscriptions. Not a lot, but we had some. But what a lost art that is. Magazines. Nobody has any magazines in their home anymore. You don't see People on people's coffee table anymore. You don't see, Sports Illustrated you see that in doctors' offices. That's it. Nobody has a magazine in their house anymore. But apparently, certainly in the 80s, people had 3, 4, 5 subscriptions coming in the mail. Better Homes and Garden, Sports Illustrated for the dad of the family. Hot Dog or whatever that other one is for kid, Boomerang, whatever it was called. I forget the kids' magazines. I think Hot Dog was one of them. Anyway, I don't know if schools still do. I do. Well, that's not true. I do know. Kids don't come door to door so much anymore, except the Scouts. The Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts come door to door, and I'll always, and I think it's just because I feel their pain. I've walked in their shoes, so when the Boy Scouts come, I buy the overpriced popcorn. When the Girl Scouts come, I buy the the overpriced cookies. And you got to write your name in that little tiny order form, tiny little box. But nobody has come selling magazines. And nobody is selling those chocolate bars. And you know exactly what they look like. You know what the chocolate bars look like. And they would come in a carrying box. You'd have to carry the box. Like, it looked like a lunch box. You'd have to walk through the streets, swinging the candy box. Hey, would you like to buy? Well, I'll take a crispy. Oh, I'm all out of crispy. All right. Give me a caramel. But for real, no lie, maybe 10 years ago or so, in the course of a summer, 2 people came to the door selling magazines. Were they children? No. They were college students, and they were selling magazines. And what was such a turnoff back then, this is a little longer than 10 years ago. I don't even think Liam was around. So it was probably 12, 13 years ago. I was a little bit of a gym rat back then. So I was a lot bigger. I was a lot, I was never, anything that impressive, but I had some muscle and I had bigger shoulders and I had, triceps and I walked around without a shirt on a lot. And the door rang and I went to the door and, I'm walking to the door and the guy's like, "Oh, do you work out?" And I'm like, and he's like, I'm selling magazines for a trip to wherever, Bulgaria. Hey, maybe you can come with me to be my bodyguard. And I'm like, get out of here. No, I didn't buy a magazine. But I kid you not, 1 month later, different kid came to the door, rings the door. I walk to the door and he goes, "Oh, do you work out?" And he used the same bodyguard line. And that just made me so mad that they're all sitting around with their, goofy, just post-adolescent selves. Their manager is, 24. And the manager's like, "Listen, when the guys come to the door, ask them if they work out." Gets them every time. And then the kids are like eating it up. That's stupid. Anyway, folks, do you remember selling candy bars and selling magazines for your school? And do you remember the WEEPAL? I do. Do you? All right, folks, that is all. Thanks for hanging out with me. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday the 13th, folks. So we're going to play the NES masterpiece, Friday the 13th. And then I'll show you my NECA Jason Voorhees. We'll do 2 videos tomorrow. We'll do the NECA figures, and we'll play some Friday the 13th on Nintendo. All right, that is all. Good night now.